Welcome to the Boss It Weekly podcast, a no-nonsense, no-hype, frank and close-up analysis of what is currently working and what is not in the world of software. The Boss It podcast is packed with major takeaways for software business owners and managers. So, let's begin.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Boss It. Today is going to be talking about a number of different subjects, actually, with my guest. It's even going to include some discussion around mergers and acquisitions, which I don't always do, although that's been a big focus for my business life, going back nearly 20 years now, or just over 20 years, and then prior to that in other sectors as well. So it should be quite an enjoyable conversation. I've been getting some feedback around Boss It and the podcast, and it's good to hear that the second season of Boss It is being well received, but I would like to hear more. The more feedback that I can get, the more I'm able to design the podcast to produce things that you really want to hear about. And that could be particular people that you want me to not interview. I think I see them more as a sort of a discussion. So it's the opportunity for you to listen in on a discussion. And when the podcast goes really well, it really is that, where I can just forget about the fact that things are being recorded. And hopefully my guests can also forget about it. And we're just having a conversation about our experiences. But it may also be answering specific questions. So please do get in contact. There's many ways you can get in contact with me. I'd like to introduce Bechara Wakim, who is the founder and also has been the CEO for Everteam. So welcome, Bechara, and thank you for joining this podcast.
Thank you, Mark, for inviting me for this podcast.
It's a pleasure, and I think it's going to be an interesting conversation, and there's lots of things that I want to discuss with you. Let's see what we can sort of fit in over the next 30 minutes or so. I wanted to start out, first of all, in talking a little bit about you and your background. So where did your journey start? What was your original training and what were your aims when you first started out?
Yeah, really, I started a long time ago. Before creating Everteam, I was a professor at university in IT and document management. And I created my first company in document management space in 1985. And after that, we sold out the company and we created Everteam in 30 years ago to be able to integrate all new technology by the time being into the document management processes and tools. And Everteam started working on document management, and after that we moved to content management, and now Everteam became the main player in artificial intelligence tools integrated into document management and content management space. This is a very important point for me personally, because when I did long time ago my PhD in France, it was the first PhD in artificial intelligence. And for me, it was really very important to bring to the content management space a real added value using the up-to-date tools and using the natural language processing and all artificial intelligence tools. It was really very important, and that's why maybe coming from university, it was the reason why we have created in Everteam a research lab, Everteam Lab, dedicated to artificial intelligence, and started 12 years ago working on how to improve content management space. Then personally, I brought this, but it was because it was really a very interesting subject for me.
You've mentioned quite a few. I've jotted down about 5 or 6 topics already, and you've only just started, which is great start. Let me take you back first of all. You mentioned about this first document management company that you had. What was the name of that company?
ChemData.
ChemData. What was the aim of that company in those days?
By the time being, it was to bring to our customers the tools to be able to manage their documents, but by the time being, documents was paper documents.
Yes.
Then it was more to describe the documents, to give a keyword, to be able to access to the information. But all documents were paper documents. And this changed after that. And when we have created EverTeam, it was to integrate digital documents.
Oh, I see. So in those early days, it wasn't. Were you imaging the documents and then attaching metadata to those image documents, or was
Yes.
it? Ah, right. Okay. So you were converting paper documents to images and attaching metadata.
Yes.
Was there a form of paper document management as well? I mean, were you aiming also to retain the paper documents? Because I know that is, and especially in those days, it would have been a requirement for some industries.
Completely.
Or were you mainly focused on the management of the digital document?
Really, what we brought to our customers, both tools to cover managing paper documents,
Yes.
managing digital documents. And it was because all the companies, even still now, they have both to manage. Even if now the digital documents are more biggest volume than paper documents, but all companies still have paper documents to manage also. Then this is what we brought to our customers, is a tool to be able to manage all the documents they have.
Yes.
Not only paper, not only digital, but
Yes.
both.
So you would have gone through that part of the development of document management, where in the early days there was lots of discussion about the paperless office.
Completely.
Did
Yes.
that cause you any problems? Not problems in what you were doing, but perhaps problems in the discussions perhaps that you were having with potential clients and what they felt was feasible or was the aim.
I will not say problems, but really it was a real challenge to convince customers that they can manage both sides. It's not only digital documents,
Yes.
not only paper documents, but they can manage both of them. I can take some use case. One of our customers, very large accounts, because what I didn't mention that EverTeam customers are large and very large accounts.
Yes.
One of our customers wanted to manage the documents, daily documents, and they are using, but also the documents stored in archiving.
Yes.
And on their archiving, they used to have paper and digital documents. And the challenge was to convince the customer that we are able to manage all these documents, the archived documents, and also the daily use documents with the same tool. And this is what really gave EverTeam a great added value on the market. Because you know that maybe 20 years ago in document management space, we used to have a lot of players.
Yes.
Today, the main players are working on digital documents, but there is no many players managing both sides, paper and digital documents.
That's very true, and that's something that I saw, in my career in the early days with document management. I think that a lot of the traditional companies that were involved with paper storage and the management of paper struggled to make that transition as the opportunity to digitize came around.
Completely.
They didn't necessarily have the right background. I think that some denied the effect that it was going to have, whereas most people could see, although we may not end up with the paperless office, maybe even within our lifetimes, things were going to change, where there was going to be a lot less paper. I think initially, actually, at one stage, there was actually more paper as computers started to churn out reports and more paper.
Even now, if a user is looking for one information, it's very important that he or she can access to this information, either if it's in digital documents or in paper documents.
Yes.
For example, if we look to the GDPR obligations, managing personal information, it's an obligation whatever the document is.
Yes.
You don't have the choice. One of our customers, I will not mention the name, one of our EverTeam customers, they have 450 kilometers of paper documents. 450 kilometers.
Wow.
Then a lot of information are stored in these documents.
Yes.
And they need to be able to manage this correctly and to comply with legal obligations.
Did you ever see the 50 kilometers of documents?
Yeah, it's really something not unusual in large accounts.
No.
In companies like we have another customer, here we are talking about digital documents only.
Yes.
They are daily documents production is 2 million per day.
Yes.
2 million documents per day. Okay.
Yeah.
Then everyone knows today that the information, the documents produced in all companies are increasing maybe 50% or 60% per year. Then it's a real constraint for all the users, and they need very advanced tools to be able to use this. And for me, it was really the added value of EverTeam we brought to our customers, because many players were only working on digital.
Yes.
Others were working on paper.
Absolutely.
And few players only were delivering the tools to manage all the documents, either paper or digital.
I'm 100% behind that view, and that's something that I saw time and time again. And I think that the document management industry has been hindered or held up because I think that a lot of the solution providers and some of the clients, but a lot of the clients, they wanted a single answer. And I think that there was a rather blunt tool that was applied, which was that they wanted to digitize everything. And I saw that quite a lot, where people were being pointed at archives. And I can remember a number of projects where they could measure the documents that they had in miles or kilometers. And they said, we need to get all of that digitized. And you knew that it was never going to happen. The cost was too prohibitive for many companies.
Completely.
And there would be time and effort spent on trying to create that solution. And actually they were asking the wrong question and consequently getting the wrong answer.
Yes.
And that caused frustration and held things up.
Fully agree. And what we see that there's many BPO players doing this for customers, but they are working more, if we look to the insurance market, they are working more on the incoming documents than on the already stored paper documents. Then they are working to digitalize all incoming documents, but the previous ones, the paper existing already documents, the cost will be too high, and it will take a lot of time to be able to do it. That's why we still need to manage both at the same time.
Absolutely. And I think that we had two camps at one stage, and I think probably is still there today to some extent, is the fact that the companies that were used to handling paper documents, and I'm particularly thinking about the records management, the box storage companies, they were always trying to solve the solution by saying, we can store your paper documents, and do you really want to digitize your documents? And the digital solution providers were saying, you need to digitize it, and don't worry about the paper documents. You can get rid of most of those. And actually, the real solution was a combination of the both, or a much more subtle and intelligent approach, which is some of your documents probably do need to be digitized. Some of the documents which you're probably never going to access again, they don't need to be archived. You just need to know where they are, and to provide a blend between the two. And it sounds like that's what you were addressing in those days.
Yes, completely. And this is really the market today is looking to have solutions to cover not only document on one side, not only records on the other side, but to manage everything, to access to the information, either if it's paper or digital, either if it's in a document managed by the document management tool, or a document stored in the ERP system, or a document stored in the CRM, etc. Now we need to access very quickly, very easy to the information we need to have whatever this information is stored. And this is really a big challenge for the customers. It's in the past, if you need information managed by the financial department, then you have to access to the ERP.
Yes.
It was separate from the document management. It was separate from the CRM. It was separate from the other tools in the company. But today, no one will be happy to spend 1 or 2 hours to find the information. Because if we have the tool to access to the information very quickly, even if it's stored in different places, it's really a real added value to the users. And our customers are looking for that. That's why in large accounts, we are not just managing documents in Everteam tools. We are managing also documents to give access to the users, even if these documents are in the ERP system or in other tools, because for the users, it's key. And using natural language processing and artificial intelligence tools gives to the users a real added value to find the right document, the right information, even if they don't use the exact and the right wordings to search their documents. And this is the added value Everteam brought to its customers.
So a certain intelligence around a form of fuzzy logic where they may not know the exact term that they need to search upon, but there's an added logic there that enables them to find it nevertheless.
Completely, and also multilingual search, because we have, if we look in France or in any other country, we have a lot of documents in English, we have other documents in German, etc. And to be able to have a multilingual search to find the needed documents, even if the word I use is in English, or even if the word in the document is in English and I'm asking in French, it's a real added value. I can take one real use case for one of our customers in the United States. Everyone supposed that all their documents are in English. And when they started the implementation of Everteam product, they realized that they can use multilingual. And this customer has a lot of investment in Europe and in France. And they have a lot of documents in French also. Then the multilingual was really key for them. But they didn't ask for this at the beginning because they didn't thought that it's feasible.
There's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you about content management, artificial intelligence, and natural language processing. But before I did that, what was your reason for the transition from ChemData to Everteam? Why did you make that step?
This, we had, by the time being, a proposal from another company who was interested to acquire ChemData.
Right.
Very large company, acquiring ChemData not to keep the sales process, but to use the products for their own needs.
Ah, okay. Right.
And the founders of ChemData in 1990 came. I was the general manager of ChemData, but we discussed with other persons and with Annie Thieulin and Henry Vigne. We decided to create a new company because it was not a problem with the buyer of ChemData. And that's what we did in 1990. And we spent the first 2.5 years just to develop the new product. Then it was a lot of investment by the time being. But it is really the reason why we sold out ChemData was not related to the product or to the only market side, but it gave us enough funds to create a new company.
I suppose it gives you the opportunity to have a fresh start with all of the experience you've gathered from ChemData. Sometimes I think that it can be a great challenge or a great opportunity to be able to sort of clear your desk and say, knowing all that I know now, how would I start the business again?
Yes, completely. I fully agree. And it's something in the 30 years of Everteam business life, we had to take twice this type of decisions. And it was very, very, very challenging. At the beginning, we started in 1990. In 2000, 10 years after the creation of the company, we integrated all full text processing, etc. And it needed to create a new product, new go-to-market process, etc. It was really a real challenge. And in 2009, we have started to create with the artificial intelligence and natural language processing, and it was a new product, and we have no choice. We needed to move to this new technology.
Yes.
And it was a real challenge. As you mentioned, I think that all the software vendors have to manage this challenge to create new products and to move from one space to a new one.
It's a challenge, but probably if you're looking back, is it a challenge that you're pleased you accepted and you took on?
Completely. What I can say, that just it's a challenge we accepted, but it also, I can say, companies have no choice. When we see that the market needs new things, the market evolution is going in another space. If you don't anticipate this, the company cannot continue on the long run.
Evolve or die.
Yes.
Yes.
Completely. And many, all of us, we know many software vendors disappeared. Before that, they were real nice players and large players, but they didn't anticipate the market evolution.
Oh, I've seen many companies just disappear, and actually quite surprisingly, some companies that had a big name, they were doing well, but they refused to evolve as the market evolved.
Yes.
And consequently, they were out of touch. And I think that can always be perhaps a weakness for some founders, because in order to be a founder of a business, I think you have to have a great deal of self-belief. You have to be very persistent and disciplined. And sometimes you have to push through when perhaps people around you are saying, you shouldn't be doing that. And you have to have faith. But I think sometimes that faith and discipline and persistence can work against you when the market changes and you're not listening, you're not paying attention. You have to change.
Yes.
There are problems you have to overcome in every business. And you've been in business a long time, and without even knowing, I can guarantee that you've had to overcome many problems when at times you would have thought maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore, but you push through those problems. But you also have to be aware that sometimes you have to change direction. I think Americans like to call this word pivot, and I think you have to be able to pivot and listen.
Exactly, but it's a real challenge to do it, and you don't only need to have the enough knowledge about the new technology, about the market evolution, but also you need additional investment. You need to keep what you are doing, and at the same time start doing something new. And for this, really the investment is key. Just for your information, on Everteam side, 20 years after the creation of the company, we used to have 114 shareholders, many investment companies, many investors. And 6 years ago, I decided to acquire the company with managers of the company. And we acquired the company in 2014 because we needed to move to something new also. And the investors, as you know, they cannot stay always in the same company. Then it was for us a very, very important point. But for sure that the challenge for the managers is not only to anticipate the market evolution, but also it's to find the right investors at the right moment.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's a really important point that you mentioned there, Bechara, because I think that there are a lot of entrepreneurs in this industry, but in all industries, that I don't think they think clearly enough about the role of an investor, because an investor is never going to have exactly the same perspective as you will, as the entrepreneur, as the people running the business.
Completely.
Their depth of knowledge will not be as good, and it never will be. And I think that there are times when that can hold you back. And you've made a brave choice to be able to do that, but ultimately you made the right choice.
Yes, and it's really forever team. I can say that we have created the company in 1990. The first financial investor who joined us, it was in 1995, which is really, by the time being, it was not something very, very usual to do it. But it was key for the company development. And I can say that investors, some of them brought us enough funding.
Yes.
But some others brought us also additional added value, not only the money, but also the network, but also the strategical brainstorming, etc. And it's really, I really appreciate all the investment players, because the software market evolution was really done thanks to the investors also.
Yes. And I think that's even more going to be even more important in the future, because the one thing, I'm always looking for trends within the software industry, and it can be very complex because there are lots of subsectors within the software industry. Obviously, I think predominantly I'm talking about more the business to business software sector, but one of the overriding trends is that the pace of change is forever increasing. It gets faster. We live in a technology age. People talk about it as the fourth industrial revolution, this digitizing of the world. And I think that pace of change is something else that needs to be appreciated when you're trying to plan.
Yeah.
And that needs to be considered also when you're working with investors. You won't necessarily have the time to evolve slowly. And I think that's where additional funding can help, is to be able to make that change at the same rate of change as your market. And I think that's going to be very important.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a question, actually, because you've been through this journey of the document management as it changed and it evolved to content management, as enterprise content management, and all of the different terms that have been around document management. What have you seen in the market changes? And where do you see the market today?
I think that there's many changes and many expectations of the market. So in the past, document management and content management was a dedicated tools for dedicated applications, not connected to the other IT environment of the companies.
Yes, I understand.
Today, we have really to include the document management and content management with other tools. I can give you one real use case, one of our customers. This is for the customers, it's key to have all document management tools integrated to its SAP documents.
Right.
Because in the SAP ERP, they have a lot of other documents. And to be able to manage this, they need to connect all their tools. It's one use case, but we have many use cases like this. Then for document management and content management space, the evolution of the tools to be as one piece of a global IT system, it's a really something who started several years ago, but now it's a key point. The other important market request is related to the information governance. We are no more talking just about the process management. We are talking about information governance. Then to be able to manage the right information, to be able to move out dark data, to be able to optimize all our storage, etc. It's no more just document management. It's really part of all the information governance of the company. And here, where NLP and artificial intelligence brought a real added value to the content management space. And for me, in the next 5 to 10 years, it's a key point for ECM players
Yes.
It's really a key point.
Well, I want to ask you a question actually about AI and natural language processing. But before that, uh, one of the things that I would like to ask you is about this mass data that is being called within the industry. We now have much more digital information. People are talking a lot. I mean, in the technology sector, every day we're seeing, articles about the power of mass data. But
Yes.
do you think that with that mass data also comes greater responsibility, and hence we're going to see much more information governance requirements?
Yes, completely. It's really very, very important point. When I mentioned information governance, also I was thinking about mass data. It means also that the data we have to manage is not only related to document
No.
like we used to manage this in content management or document management. Here we have paper documents, we have digital documents, but we have also video documents. We
Yes.
have also audio documents. Then, and more, this is a new type of documents the players need to manage also. Not only, we are not talking only about text documents. We
No.
are talking about all the information in the company. And this information is not only text, it's more and more other type of information.
So you're talking about document as any package of information, be
Yes,
that on a piece of paper, electronic document, audio, video, PDF. Any packaged piece of information,
exactly.
and that feeds into the mass data.
Yeah, and this is a real need of the customers. We have one customer in construction space and construction market. They have a lot. They are working in all countries all over the world, and they have a lot of documents in paper, but also video, but also picture, but also audio.
Yes.
And it's really key to be able for one project on their side. It's key to be able to manage all the documents related to this project, even if it's text or audio or video or other type of documents.
I had probably 5 or 6 years ago, I had multiple conversations with probably all of the main ECM vendors throughout the world, the really big guys, about what I was seeing regarding the implications of video, because I could see that the storage requirements for video was increasing massively,
Yes.
and the amount of information that was stored within those videos and audio was increasing exponentially at an enormous rate.
Yes.
And although those documents, those video and audio documents could be stored, how do you get to the information that's stored within a video? Because a lot of technology, especially then and even today, was really very much like the old video recorders that we had from
Yes.
30 years ago. You knew there was some information or there was something that you wanted to watch, but that video may last 2 or 3 hours, and you had to just keep pushing forward and rewind to try and find it. How did you locate the piece that you wanted? And I think in that respect, that although we have a lot of video and audio stored, our ability to actually capture the specific piece of information that you want within those is still quite archaic for many companies.
Yes, it's a real challenge, and I mentioned this to answer your question about the evolution of
Yes.
content management space. And there is no, how to say it, there is no today completely existing solution to manage video, audio, etc. There is tools coming from the video market to be able to recognize the content. But I think that in the next couple of years, it's something all the ECM players have to integrate in their tools. And it will bring maybe added value, not 100% for the customers, but more and more with the new functionalities, it will really help the customers to manage correctly all the documents, all the content that they have to manage, including video and audio. But today there is no perfect solution yet.
No, and actually that you bring up a really good point, which was probably at the heart of a frustration that I had back 5 or 6 years ago when I was having those conversations, is that I think the people that I was speaking to were saying, yes, we can see that this is going to be a need in the future, but our customers are not asking for this. And I felt that that was the wrong attitude.
Yes.
Because I think as experts, you need to be anticipating the needs of your customers. You need to be advising them for their own best interest. And once they start asking you, they're already aware. Where the skill comes is probably highlighting that need before they are aware and preparing them. And I think that the ECM vendors were looking to where they were going to get the big revenue streams today because they were short-term focused. They've not been looking to the future. And I think they've missed out. I think that they've really missed out in this area. I mean, I'm aware, and I get to see lots and lots of technology companies. I see startups and medium-sized companies that can add immense value to a lot of ECM companies, but their problem is being heard. They're not, as these smaller companies, going to be able to have the impact that they really should. But teaming up with some of those ECM companies that have already got the customer base, they've already got the infrastructure, and they've got the solutions to plug in some of the smaller parts to the jigsaw, I think could be very powerful. But even today, those ECM companies are not doing that effectively. There is out there technology that can recognize images. There's technology that can also convert a video or audio to text, which then enables you to be able to search and jump to the piece of information that you want.
Yes.
But it's not accelerating at the rate that it should be. That technology's been around for a while. There are lots of players out there. There's a lot of misunderstanding.
Yes.
And the ECM vendors are missing it. In fact, this could be the platform for me to say again, if there are ECM vendors out there that understand what we're talking about today and they want to look at some solutions, come and speak to me, because I know where a lot of these people are and they're crying out for assistance. They need the bigger organization to go and work with, but they struggle to be heard. And I think that that's a big problem. One of the other things that I wanted to speak to you about, and this is going to be a bit more controversial, I'm going to be challenging you a little bit here, Bechara, because I have a belief about AI, artificial intelligence, and other forms of technology which suddenly seem to come into our awareness because it's been packaged up as a concept. Now, artificial intelligence, the term itself was very clever because I think it is something that people, even non-technical, they immediately get an understanding by what that means. It doesn't need much explanation and it seems very attractive. My own view is actually we don't really have artificial intelligence. It is more machine learning. It's learning by what's gone before. It's not actually thinking. But I think it's been more about the fact that now there is this term, a concept called artificial intelligence, and it's suddenly come into vogue and we're seeing it everywhere. But the problem is that there's a lot of companies out there that are leading their positioning, they're leading their communication by saying, we provide AI. And I think the market really, if they were to be brutally honest, it's interesting, this thing we call artificial intelligence. I don't believe it totally is artificial intelligence because it doesn't think like a human does, and that's what a lot of people are believe it to be. And I think it can also create a lot of cynicism at a later stage. But ultimately, what people want is they want a solution to a problem. They want their businesses to be run more efficiently. If that's artificial intelligence, machine learning, or NLP, they don't really care. It's like going to see a doctor and saying, I've got a pain in my stomach, and the doctor talking to you about the chemical formula of the medication he's going to give to you. It might be interesting to some, but really, I just want you to solve my problem.
Yes, I fully agree. Artificial intelligence is a very large label, let's say.
Yes.
And what it brings, there's different tools. Like we talk about natural language processing, which means it's a tool which is able to really analyze and give the right answers from the text, not only from metadata, and to use multiple languages and to use different words meaning the same thing.
Yes.
Machine learning bring an additional added value, which allows the tools of NLP to improve the analysis it's doing, because machine learning improve the tool, the product. But for sure, when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's more marketing, let's say, wording. But in this label, there is very, very interesting spaces, very interesting tools. And I think that it will continue to evolve. And we see that it's not related to ECM space, not really only to content management, but all the new players, Google, Facebook, etc., they are using the artificial intelligence. Each of them is taking part of this tool to improve their products, their functionalities, to give to the users a easier tool and a more efficient one.
Yes.
But the word artificial intelligence is still really a marketing word. But
it is.
Which is something usual on the market.
Yes. Yes. And marketing people are out there to be that's their job, is to be able to take complex things and phrase it in a way that is more understandable. And I think that's important. But I think there is also, and I think when talking to people within the industry who've technical knowledge, we appreciate there's a certain amount of hype. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes that hype can go too far. And I think we saw that many, many years ago with business intelligence. There was this phrase that came out, and companies were associating themselves, and they were using this interest that happened quite quickly in this concept of business intelligence. And they aligned their company with business intelligence. But the problem was that as the market started to understand business intelligence, and also there were some great promises surrounding this term of business intelligence that weren't fulfilled, that was also harmful to these companies. Because there was a cynicism that then occurred, and there was a backlash. And then I saw companies that were wanting to disassociate themselves with business intelligence.
Yes.
And that then's difficult.
Completely.
If you become known for it.
Yeah, Mark, we can spend all the day discussing
because
it's a very, very interesting subject and really important one. And that's what I was doing since many, many years.
I was going to draw things to a close because actually we've been speaking for 50 minutes, but I'd just like to finish up by saying thank you very much for today, for coming on the podcast. It's been very interesting speaking to you, as you can tell by the length of the podcast. And maybe we could have another podcast at another stage and perhaps go into some of these topics in a little bit more depth. But thank you very much for today. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I'll let you shoot off to your next meeting.
Thank you. And it will be my pleasure to go in more details on the next podcast.
That would be great. Thank you very much, Bechara.
Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.